All right, let's dive into something that can be kind of tricky in English, how we talk about the past. Getting the difference right between what we had to do, what we should have done, and what was supposed to happen. Stick with me, and you're going to feel a whole lot more confident about it.
Of course you have. We all have, right? It's that little feeling of regret, that if only moment. It's totally universal. Maybe you're thinking, I should have called them back, or wow, I really shouldn't have eaten that entire pizza. That exact feeling, well, that's what we're going to unpack today.
And here's the good news. English actually has a really precise way to talk about these feelings. Once you see the pattern, you'll be able to express all those complicated thoughts about the past, no problem. So let's start with the most basic one. First up is past necessity. Think of this as our foundation. This is for all those times when it wasn't a choice at all. It was a requirement, an obligation, something you simply had to get done. So, let's look at this. In the present, Julia has to get a visa. It's something she needs to do right now. But if we're talking about a trip she took last year, we just shifted to the past. She had to get a visa. See? Simple. The obligation is done. It's in the rearview mirror. She already took care of it. The main thing to remember here is that had to means there was absolutely no choice in the matter. It wasn't just a good idea, it wasn't a suggestion, it was a requirement. There was no other option on the table. Now, here's a spot where English actually makes things pretty easy for us. In the present, you could say, I must go, or I have to go, or even I've got to go. But when you switch to the past, all of those just become one simple phrase, had to. Kind of cleans things up, doesn't it? Okay, so we've covered the things that were absolute requirements, but what about the things that were just a good idea? Now we're getting into what we call advisability, and this is where the real emotion comes in. We're talking mistakes, we're talking regret. Let's just paint a picture here. One that I think we can all relate to, unfortunately. You get your test back. The grade is not what you were hoping for. You failed. And you get that sinking feeling in your stomach as your mind starts rewinding. And boom, that's the thought that pops right into your head. I should have studied. That little phrase, should have, is basically the official language of regret. It's how we look back and kick ourselves for not making a different choice. This breaks it down perfectly. When you say, I should have studied, you're really telling a little three-part story. Part 1, it was a good idea to study. Part 2, the reality, but I didn't. And that leads directly to Part 3, the consequence, I made a mistake. It's a whole narrative packed into just 3 words. Okay, quick tip to help you sound a little more natural when you're speaking. Native speakers almost never say should have as 2 separate, clear words. We just kind of mash it together. So you'll almost always hear should have or even shoulda. I should have studied. It's a tiny change, but it makes a huge difference. All right, for our last section, things get just a little bit trickier. We've talked about what had to happen and what should have happened. So now, let's talk about what was expected to happen, but, didn't. The grammar itself is pretty straightforward. Are supposed to just becomes were supposed to. But it's the meaning that's really key here. When you say we were supposed to leave last week, you're almost always implying that you didn't. It's a signal that the plan completely went off the rails. So think of was or were supposed to as the phrase for a broken plan. There was an expectation, an intention in the past that just didn't happen. I was supposed to call you, but I completely forgot. The plan was there, but reality had other ideas. And here's the curveball. We just learned that should have is all about regret, right? Well, yeah, but it can also be used to talk about an expectation. So how in the world do you tell them apart? Let's put these 2 side by side. I should have studied, that's clearly about regret, right? A past mistake. But then look at, the mail should have been here by now. You're not regretting anything there. That's about an expectation, a past prediction. You're not admitting you did something wrong. You're just saying you thought something would happen. It really all comes down to the context. So after all that, what's the big takeaway? From the simple obligations to that tricky double meaning of should have, let's just boil it all down to a simple toolkit you can use anytime. Here it is, your essential toolkit for talking about the past. Just remember this. If there was zero choice, you use had to. If you're talking about a mistake, something you regret, use should have. And if a plan or an expectation fell through, go with was supposed to. You master these 3, and you've got a huge piece of this puzzle figured out. So I'll leave you with this final thought to put it all into practice. Just think about your last week. What's one thing you were supposed to do that maybe didn't get done? See, this isn't just boring grammar. It's literally how we tell the stories of our lives. Thanks for tuning in.